right, welcome. Happy Tuesday, wherever you are. This is the Gray Matter, Evans and Chambers, and Carahsoft webinar called Zero Trust for Federal Success, a Systems Integrators Guide. We appreciate you taking the time to join us today as we cover a couple of very interesting topics related to zero trust networking and the federal landscape. We will cover some welcome and introductions to our panelists here today. We'll cover a little bit of background on the landscape itself. We'll do a discussion, slides off, just a conversation between the experts on the call regarding systems integrators opportunity, some real world examples that they've had with different agencies, and then some of the advantages to some of the partnership opportunities here as well. We'll do a quick review and we'll do some Q&A. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with doing some introductions. So Jamil, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Jamil Evans. I'm president, CTO, and co-founder at Evans and Chambers Technology. We're a government contractor located in the DC area, obviously supporting intelligence and defense. And that's where we've got our interactions with Gray Matter. And that's it for me.
Okay, so I'm Jonathan Holmes, CTO at Gray Matter. I'm pretty boots on the grounds when it comes to CTO. I support many of our customers, really understand how zero trust networking works and how to evangelize and utilize Gray Matter to achieve those goals. Appreciate Jamil and Kevin. I've worked with them as well on some of the initiatives that we're going to talk about today.
I'm Hani Elias.
Sorry.
Oops, sorry, Kevin, jumped the gun there. I'm Hani Elias, SVP Operations at graymatter.io. Working with all of the SMEs here and hopefully with a lot of you partners in the future.
All right, I'm Kevin Asoda. I'm a cloud architect with Evans and Chambers, very much similar to John, a boots on the ground kind of guy working on implementing some of the government's needs and wants in terms of data handling and data infrastructure.
And I'm Bina Vet-Gamma. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Gray Matter, and I'm here as your moderator today as well.
And then I'm Noah Kalish on behalf of Carahsoft Technology Corporation. And I'd like you to welcome you to our Gray Matter and Evans and Chambers webinar. Before we start, I should have a few housekeeping items I'd like to review. The audio portion of this webinar can be heard through your computer speakers, and please note that all of your lines have been muted to reduce background noise. If you'd like to ask any questions about the presentation, please feel free to do so using the Q&A pod at the bottom of your screen. We'll set aside time at the end of the presentation to hold a Q&A session, and our speakers will answer your questions over the line. If we're unable to get to your question, our Gray Matter team at Carahsoft will follow up with you offline. This webinar is being recorded, and a link will be sent out in a follow-up email for you to view. Carahsoft is a trusted government IT solutions provider delivering software and support solutions to federal, state, local, and education customers. Carahsoft maintains dedicated teams to support sales and marketing for all of its vendors, including Gray Matter. With that, I'd like to turn it over to our speakers. Vina, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. And just as Noah said, we would love questions. We want to make this interactive, so please use either the webinar chat feature or the Q&A feature to ask your questions, and we'll make sure we get those answered before the end of the call. Some of our key takeaways today. First, we're going to identify some high-value federal zero trust networking opportunities. Then we're going to jump into learning some proven deployment strategies and insights from Evans and Chambers and their federal experience that they've had. And then for number 3, understand how platforms like Gray Matter help ease the transition into zero trust principles. And then finally, we're going to talk just a bit about the streamlined procurement through Carahsoft's contract vehicles and their expertise in the area as well. So with that, we're going to get started. We're going to make it a little interactive, and we have our first poll. So our first question to our audience here is, which pillar of zero trust is your organization an expert in? Pick the one that feels the most appropriate. User, devices, applications and workloads, data, network and environment, automation and orchestration, visibility and analytics, or none of the above. Just give it a few seconds for the majority of our attendees to please respond, and then we can share some results. Noah, when you feel we have critical mass, we can share some results.
Sounds good. I'll just give him a couple more seconds before I do the share.
That's great.
All right, and here are the results.
Excellent. So it looks like there's some pretty even distribution across the answers there. The top two were network and environment and automation and orchestration. That was the most area people felt that they had made some big strides. We do have 25% coming in at none of the above. So lots of learning opportunities there as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Honey to talk about the landscape. Over to you.
Hi. Thank you for joining us. I'm Honey Elliott. I was introduced a little earlier. I'm thrilled to be a part of this conversation about the federal government's journey towards zero trust networking. I am a former public servant in the IC and DoD. So this topic is close to my heart. It represents the collaboration with our partners, small, mid, and large-sized businesses, to deliver secure and operationally resilient solutions for these customers. Next slide, please. The zero trust security model is a paradigm shift in how we think about safeguarding our most critical assets. I may date myself. I worked in the Pentagon when they first introduced email and moved away from like staff packages. But here we are where it's the trust nothing environment, which makes sense for national security and a lot of our defense operations. How we think about safeguarding those critical assets really takes the collaboration that we want to achieve through a webinar and further opportunities with partners like yourselves. Next slide. This slide is just a representation of some of the metrics. The Cloud Security Alliance recently reported that while not 80% of organizations prioritize zero trust, many are still navigating how to operationalize it effectively. Of the 7 pillars, we didn't see one, that was higher than others. So everyone is really contributing to get to to achieve those frameworks, such as the National Institute of Standards and Technology 800-207, which is a zero trust architecture instructions, as well as the FIPS series for cryptography standards. So as we move through all of these compliance activities with our customers, partnerships like these will benefit us all. Next slide. So there's a question here on the slide. What does it mean for the agencies or customers you support? In this dialogue, we're going to have Evans and Chambers, who has used our technology, the Gray Matter Zero Trust Networking platform, achieve some of those goals, and they'll dialogue more about the things that they're seeing on the ground. Next slide. Some of the ZTN deployment or zero trust networking deployment challenges are here on this slide, again with some stats. We want to help you lower these stats and help achieve successful outcomes for your customers. It's with the strong system integrators, small, medium, and large business partnerships that we can reach those objectives. With that, I'm going to turn it over to John, our CTO.
Thanks, Honey. So I'm going to give you just a quick run through of what Gray Matter is and how we actually enable zero trust within your architectures. As Honey mentioned, Gray Matter is a zero trust networking platform. There's a few capabilities internal to us that make us fully zero trust compliant, specifically when we start speaking to the NIST 800-207 and 207A guidelines. One of the things that we're able to achieve is full service orchestration associated with automated playbooks and how capabilities come online and ensure that as those capabilities come online, they're fully attested, validated, and verified to allow them to operationally run within your production environment. Additionally, and part of our automation aspects is making sure that we follow basic principles like GitOps, so that no one's touching the systems when they don't have to. It's all automated processes that are actually working through that. And then when we start thinking through the compliance and federal standards, you start looking at down deeper into what Gray Matter is able to provide. So we provide full certificate automation out of the box. So every single service, application, microservice, database asset that's coming online gets its own cryptographic identity. Those identities are then trusted to be able to communicate with other services or applications in your network, one way or bidirectional. And then subsequently, those certificates are rotated. Additionally, some of the things that we do when we start thinking zero trust, and Honey mentioned it above, is provide that FIPS compliancy. So when applications come online, just by incorporating Gray Matter, we immediately give you the FIPS enablement to ensure that those secure communications are compliant with the latest standards. And then subsequently, answering simple questions, or we say they're simple, but in reality, when you speak to an enterprise, they're not as simple. Questions like, what TLS version are you actually running within your network? Gray Matter actually catalogs all cryptographic information associated with what's coming online, and we visualize that. And we can present those visualizations both in more of a micro view or a macro view. So if you're working with the CISOs or ISOs, they can see their enterprise and with confidence, and when they're going through the accreditation aspects, make sure that the capabilities coming online follow the latest TLS versions, follow the latest elliptical curves, or EDH's hashes. So those are all built into Gray Matter alongside its ability to provide this networking framework for your application services. Next slide.
Over to Jamil, I think.
Yes. Hello, everybody. This is Jamil Evans again with Evans and Chambers Technology. Our focus is really, as I mentioned before, supporting our customers, partnering with them to deliver core solutions that really make a difference for mission operations, make a real value impact for our customers. And so that's really where Gray Matter comes into the picture for us. So I want to give you like a real world example of how it's been implemented. So one of our customers is within the IC, and the mission is to collect and deliver space data, essentially GEOINT space data, to data scientists to better protect us, to better kind of get to see what's happening with our adversaries. We've been servicing them since 2020, and what came up was it was time to go to get our ATO and to really get approved through security. And so part of that process also meant maturing our architecture, and want to stay on top of that, stay with enterprise solutions as well. So the goal for our team was to modernize into a containerized architecture and into the enterprise DevOps solution. And at the same time, obviously achieve that ATO through the ANA process. So we wanted to do all of this in a short period of time and really do it in a way that added value for the team. And so a solution was Gray Matter. We chose Gray Matter partially because of its easy integration with the DevSecOps environment, the easy integration with containers. We didn't want to pick any sort of solution to help us with this task other than one that would be adding value more so than it's taking away. We didn't want anything that was hard to work with. And as you'll hear from Kevin in the future, in the podcast section of the discussion today, it was very easy for our team. As John said, the GitOps structure made it very easy. There's really not a lot of manual intervention to integrate our code with Gray Matter. And additionally, the other big selling point for us was taking a lot of the PKI registration off our hands. So once it's set up initially, you're good to go, as John said. Another thing was centralized policy enforcement. So we don't really want to have all of our microservices do their own policy enforcement. There is, in this customer's environment, there is a centralized policy centralized policy point. And so we do go there to understand what and to source the policies, but the enforcement of that is actually handled through and leveraged through Gray Matter centrally. So that was really nice for us to be able to get up and easy into this new environment. and provides additional observability too, which is the third point, is really way better observability than we had before, which of course becomes a little bit more of a challenge when you go into a microservices architecture. But Gray Matter provides a nice dashboard where you can see all of your services and even the services that you interface with externally, quick status of up or down, listing of network errors. You can look at the user activity as they propagate through your services from one to the other. And all of that's great, especially for the security and accreditation process. Auditors really love to be able to just go and see that visually, and then also to know that that's covered. So again, all of this allowed us to mature our security standpoint, really mature our ZTA, zero trust architecture positioning, and prepare us well for moving into the ATO process. And that was extreme value for our customer. So looking forward and looking ahead, where we look as an SI to integrate this, given the great success we've had here, is to take it to other projects within the same agency and also to other agencies. We've noticed that some agencies have varying levels of maturity when it comes to containerization and ZTA. So those that have not really begun their zero trust, or I should say, are really in the early stages, this is a great time to bring Gray Matter to their attention. This fits, as you saw previously, it fits every pillar underneath the zero trust architecture. One of the ones the two that we're seeing most are, I would say, our network and application. If there's already a mature Kubernetes environment, it drops right in. If there's not, it's also very easy to integrate with your external services. And another example would be any agencies that don't have anything going on with containerization, but want to connect stovepipes across their enterprise. Gray Matter is a great way to connect multiple network segments in a secure way. And I think also any customers, what we did also find, you'll hear, is if there's different requirements coming from security, like you must upgrade your TLS level. Again, that's not an issue anymore once this is in place. It helps upscale services that currently don't support those. So we found a lot of benefit, and I don't want to share too much and get ahead of it. So we'll move over to the next portion of this, but back over to you, Vina.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you for that overview. I think we'll do another Zoom poll. So just trying to get the slide to advance there. Thank you, Noah. Does your organization or customer use, and please select all that apply, cloud, multi-cloud, platform as a service, or none of the above? Need some Jeopardy music next time. Play it on Spotify or something.
Probably a TikTok
Please.
song.
Yeah. Just a couple seconds, let people respond. Does your organization use cloud, multi-cloud, platform as a service, or none of the above? All right. Well, thank you guys. We got 83% on cloud, 83% on platform as a service. So those are our two winners. 50% had multi-cloud. Nobody had none of the above. So that's good to hear. All right, now we're going to stop. We're going to stop the slides, and we're going to do a conversation to discuss a few items that Jamil Evans, Jonathan Holmes, and Kevin Nisota have been discussing that would be relevant for today's topic. So let me go ahead and stop the screen share and turn it over to y'all.
Thanks, Vina. So really, in this section, I kind of wanted to cover three main topics: operational challenges, zero trust integration, and efficiency through automation. One of the interesting facts, and I appreciate both Jamil and Kevin for joining, that I recently just actually talked to one of the ISOs at one of the agencies, and they're envisioning that Gray Matter, or they're estimating that Gray Matter can save them roughly 80% in terms of getting applications accredited, which is actually an amazing stat, because resources are extremely short, or at least extremely low from that perspective. And we all know that DoD and intelligence communities face some of the world's most complex and high-stakes environments. Implementing zero trust architectures in these settings brings unique challenges. These challenges range from managing diverse operational environments, ensuring seamless interoperability across multiple clouds and hybrid and edge nodes, similar to the poll that was just asked, all while meeting very strict and stringent mandates to get your application accredited and get it online. Those mandates include things like NIST and DoD directives. At Gray Matter, and similar to what Jamil said, our goal is always to make things easier. How do we bring zero trust to our users in an easier capacity? Through automation, through FIPS compliance, through real-time audit streams of who's doing what, where, when, and how, and our ability to provide this management framework for all the APIs, services, and applications being deployed. Now, with that said, I do have a question for either Kevin or Jamil. I would love to hear from you guys. What do you find the most significant challenges that you've observed when looking at zero trust and trying to adhere to these principles around it?
Sure. So I can speak a little bit to kind of what we've seen, kind of boots on the ground in terms of systems engineers, developers, things of that nature. And the one thing I've noticed working across multiple agencies is that these memorandums and all of these have come out basically saying, hey, we need to move towards this zero trust architecture. This is all good things, increase our security posture. But in terms of what that implementation looks like within the enterprise has remained incredibly vague. So how are we supposed to implement these? That is still being worked very heavily at an enterprise level. So for us, it was a situation where we actually pursued essentially copying someone else's work. So we started taking a look at the tools that were available to implement zero trust to kind of find that guidance on how we should. And that's kind of how we arrived at utilizing Gray Matter. It was already present in the enterprise we were working in at the time. And as we started scrolling through the notes, some of the white papers that have been published, we said, hey, this will meet these requirements for us, even lacking some of that explicit guidance from the enterprise itself. So that is something that I think over time will mature, but we've seen limited progress on thus far across some of our government customers.
Okay. Jamil, did you have anything?
No, I think Kevin summed it up pretty well. I guess I will add just that I'll echo that looking across other agencies as well. They haven't necessarily solidified a here's the pathway forward to ZTA. Some have some environments that you can move into to help you with some of the goals of ZTA, but it's pretty early. So the path that we took, I think, was really one that worked out pretty well.
Awesome. So let me ask you a question. As you guys have started to use Gray Matter throughout your overall application suites within your customer sites, have you noticed your ability to be more readily available for security and actually focus more on allowing your teams to be able to do what I always call value code, right? It's that mission-based code set rather than worrying so much about all the plumbing that goes involved to make this zero trust compliancy.
Yeah, that one I know. I've talked to Kevin. That's one that your team has really seen some value, right?
Absolutely. Gray Matter has been an incredible force multiplier for us, and it was something where it was almost a set it and forget it. So we got onboarded into the Gray Matter mesh. We established our edge nodes, started setting up some of our configurations. And as Jamil mentioned earlier, we were actually able to integrate with the enterprise policy decision point that was made available to us. And then Gray Matter will enforce those decisions that are made. So whenever we are working on a new microservice, anything like that, we essentially have all of our network level security, our authentication, our authorization for free right from the start. And at that point, we are purely focused on, hey, let's make this piece of code do what it needs to do to make mission happen. So we have essentially freed up all of our developers to purely focus on mission-driven capabilities, and the compliance is just there.
Yeah, I mean, that's our goal, right? It sits to those standards of what I was walking through. And I actually, looking at the NIST 800 207 207A and how gray matter complies, we actually comply across all 90 controls within those things. And one of the important factor is, it's not just complying with it, it's making it easier, right? It's bringing your applications online and allowing you to focus on what your customer needs rather than on all the elements that bring together what makes up zero trust, which is an extremely important piece. And I'm so happy to hear that you guys are getting the value out of it that you need. So speaking a little bit more into the zero trust capability, it can be a little overwhelming and can be daunting. Our goal, like I said, is to make it easy, boost the agility and how you actually integrate seamlessly across environments. We do this in a couple ways. We do this by accelerating the speed to delivery through that automation aspects and through these dynamic enforcement policies. So I have a question for you. When using zero trust and using gray matters dynamic policy enforcements, we have a capability inside of us called the gray matter specification language. It's how we actually operationally perform and operate the GitOps processes underneath the covers, reducing the overall boilerplate code set down to maybe a handful of what you actually have to worry about. Have you seen this capability enable more adoption and easier deployments within your environment?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we recently rolled under a larger contract where there are now multiple development teams in play. Initially, it started as a smaller team, and we still kind of act as that infrastructure operator. But even as these additional teams are coming online, we're getting some questions. Hey, how do we want authentication to work? How do we want authorization? All of these things. And we basically just said them, hey, here are all the things we can do right off the bat, and we can have all of this deployed for you in our development environment in 10 minutes. So we can immediately bring them on, bring them up to speed, and they can have something deployed in the development environment almost immediately that has all these features integrated. And again, that frees them up to purely focus on delivering capability. So that automation has been incredibly useful for us. And I think we're going to get into it a little bit more later. But some of the operational aspects of that have been incredibly beneficial as well.
Yeah, we're gonna cover that efficiency through automation as one of our last topics here. Before we get to that, though, I did want to touch on the regulatory and compliance aspects around this. So, the government has mandated zero trust initiatives such as the Executive Order 14028, and those outlined by NIST and DoD directives. Ultimately, they provide a really clear path for CISOs and ISOs and integrators like yourself to be able to understand and where to go with zero trust. Now, obviously, every agency or every commercial capability out there approaches it a little differently on different timelines, which is good, right? With gray matter, our overall goal here is to do a few things when it comes to that. It's really cutting that time down. How long does it really take to get into a zero trust state? And our goal is to cut it down in a very easy fashion. We do that through the FIPS compliancy. We do that through our automated policy enforcement. We do that through real-time audit streams, which I think is always equally important, because a lot of times when people think zero trust, they just want to lock the network down, but they forget about the day two operational aspect of this. It's understanding who's doing what, where, when, and how within the network as well. And we provide all that through this. Can you walk me through what strategies ensure compliance with these types of mandates, ultimately without compromising operational agility?
Yeah, so in my mind and in my experience, the single biggest threat to any type of operational agility is having issues arise. So having a deployment go wrong, having something break, that kills any type of momentum you have. So being able to minimize the risk of that happening in an operational environment is paramount. So in one aspect, gray matter's automation greatly helps that. You touched on this earlier, but taking the human out of the loop when you are running a deployment is immeasurable. That's basically the birth of the entire DevOps movement. And gray matter leaning into GitOps, we can easily deploy the same configuration across our development environment, our test environment, and our production environment. We maintain parity across, so we know, hey, the same code is going to work the same way. And it has just greatly reduced the risk of anything going wrong in our operational environment. So I think that has been incredibly beneficial for us.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the automation elements to this. So we know automation is key here, right? It's how do you reduce the burden on the person, allowing them to focus on what matters, vice having to focus on tasks and capabilities that don't. This ultimately improves overall efficiencies. It does improve security, vulnerabilities, and everything of the sort. Could you share some examples of how gray matter automation has enabled more efficient operations for you, also improved any security aspects around you, and enhanced your overall mission outcome?
Of course. So I think one thing that gray matter has enabled us to do is really establish some patterns, both in our deployments, but in our architecture itself as well. So a lot of our infrastructure looks very similar. We're deploying an API, it serves data out of a backend data store. And what we've been able to do is begin brokering discussions with the security team of, we're doing the same thing, the same way, in the same manner. We have the same controls surrounding it. We have been able to greatly expand our capability to deploy things without necessarily going through a new assessment. So what traditionally would be seen as an entirely new feature, we're in conversations with the security compliance assessors to say, hey, this is basically the same thing from a infrastructure and network level security perspective. The only difference is the data, which we will defer to the data owner, which is separate from the security process. So that's enabled us to start looking at really pushing out new features, new data sets, and all these things a lot quicker. So that has been incredibly helpful for us. I think another aspect, luckily we haven't run into it yet, but things such as after action reports and root cause analysis in the face of issues. So if something goes wrong, we have that parity between our development, test, and production environments. Say we run a deployment, something does go wrong, GitOps allows us to roll back incredibly easily, but then we can take that configuration, bring it back down to development or test, and really dig into what went wrong. So that automation kind of works in both ways.
Yeah, it does make it a little easier when you deal with that. In fact, the rollback feature sets is really powerful, right? It's the ability of, oops, made a mistake, roll it back really quick, and then automatically it's provisioned throughout the fleet of services that you have deployed, is a pretty critical element to all this. One other thing related to the automation and efficiency aspect is, everybody, it's this whole day two operation piece. Everybody needs to understand the audit streams. Everybody needs to understand telemetry and analytics associated with not only just who's doing what, where, when, and how in the network, but how is my overall service performing? With gray matter, we do dynamically learn that information from services, and we're able to present it out so that you're able to make more reactive decisions and or make automated decisions around that. How do you feel this really enables you and your team to identify and address potential threats when you see these real-time audits and you feed the Splunks of the world or anything of the sort? Ultimately, I mean, I know you guys have an ISO on your team. I'm sure he's monitoring these audits. It did help you, I'm sure, save time in terms of making sure you understand what's actively going on the system. So really, I just want to kind of pass it over to you and just say, how has it enabled your team to really understand the identity and potential threats and or optimize performance? Because sometimes it's less about the threats, it's understanding the stats to help you understand this method is actually performing a little off?
Yeah, I think the kind of real time being able to look at the performance of the system. Luckily, we're in a fairly low threat. We're in a regulated environment, so we are not in the wild west of the internet, as it's sometimes referred to as. But the monitoring capability for us has really been twofold. One is the performance. So we are a data platform at its core. Our main product is the data we are producing. And we need to get that data into the hands of analysts so they can inform policymakers and warfighters. So making sure that data is moving efficiently, both within our system and to our external customers within the government, is paramount. So we are constantly looking at what are the response times of our APIs, how much data are we moving, and where is it going? One aspect I think that is sometimes overlooked is that visibility into who is doing what in your system is not just a security function. So we do talk a lot about zero trust and securing these systems, but there are additional benefits that you can derive from that as well. We're in conversations with our direct customer regarding providing more information about who is using the system so they can drive their down the line customer engagement. So not only can we tell them who is using the system, we can also tell them who is not. And they can identify, hey, we need to go talk to these guys. They should really be utilizing some of this technology or this data that we have. So that is something that I think you can see a lot more benefits beyond just the zero trust portion of utilizing these types of technologies like gray matter.
Yeah, it's a good point. And you really start shaping how you can approach the users that aren't using your system, or how do you better enable the users that are. It does play that specific role. In fact, I've used that in the past to help shape and or work through the architecture in a way that allowed users to flow a certain direction through the system and things like that. So it all plays together. So really great. With that, I'd like to thank you both again. I'm going to turn it over to Vina, I believe, who's going to work through the rest of this, close us out.
Excellent. Let me go back and share my screen. Hopefully the slides are coming up again for you guys. Looks like we have one more Zoom poll we'd like to launch. Where are you with implementing zero trust networking within your organization or with your customer? Have you just started? Is it in progress? Has most of it been completed? Or have you not yet started? Okay, we have some results. Mostly everyone, 83% said in progress. And 17% said that most has been completed. So that's promising. But yeah, everyone's either in the progress phase or maybe they're getting to the most have been completed phase. So that's pretty good. Next, we'd like to go back to Noah to talk a little bit more about Carahsoft and some of the links that they have provided here. So back to you, Noah.
Sure, thank you, Vina. Yeah, just wanted to present these links. So to learn how to take next step toward acquiring gray matter solutions, please check out the resources linked on this slide.
Thank you. So just to recap, before we get to our Q&A portion, we talked about how do you identify high value opportunities within the government sector. Let's proven, how were you able to learn proven deployment strategies and insights from the team here? Did you understand how platforms like Gray Matter can help ease the transition? We think there are a lot of examples provided around that. And how can you work with Carahsoft to access their streamlined procurement and their federal expertise? So hopefully we hit the agenda. Hopefully you felt that way too. We did have some questions that came in, so we just have a few minutes left, but I'd like to go ahead and go to those questions. So for our panelists here, what domains or IL is Gray Matter accredited for? Is our first question.
I can take that question. Gray matter can operate at information levels 2 through 6. and higher. So those are secure environments that are past IL6.
Okay, thank you. Do you offer training?
I can take that question as well. Yes, Gray Matter does offer training. Actually, we would like to empower our partners, small, medium, large businesses and system integrators, to own the expertise and operate Gray Matter in their customer environments. So absolutely.
Thank you. How do we get started?
If you're an SI, our contact information is at the end of this presentation, but again, I'm Honey Elliott. I'm probably the best person to start with individually. And Carasoft is our distributor. Those links were provided a couple of slides ago. But if you'd like to just have a conversation, feel free to reach out to one of us from the call here.
Excellent. And then the last question I have, unless we get some more that come in through the chat, where are you deployed?
Currently in the intelligence community. I'm going to stop there, but we are fully accredited, meaning authorized to operate in production in the intelligence community, one of our customers there, as well as we are deployed in the Department of Defense with the Chief Digital Artificial Intelligence Office, CDAO. We have quite a few additional customers that are across military departments that we have worked with in the past. We have a really strong past performance. But again, it's the work with you all as partners, especially our team here from Evans and Chambers, and we're really grateful for joining us here today on this call, on this webinar. It is these partnerships, this collaboration that moves us all ahead.
Excellent. So I'm checking the Q&A section one more time. I don't see any more questions coming in. This audience has been fantastic. We literally have 30 seconds left for this webinar, and we are on our last slide. I love it. That came together beautifully. So thank you to all of you that spoke today. Thanks for your insights. Thank you for our audience. You will get copies of the slides. You will get a recording link in a couple of days' times, I'm sure. We really appreciate your time today. We hope you have a wonderful Tuesday and stay safe. Thank you.